All right, guys, today, not a short film, sadly, but I thought since, this is a filmmaking channel and I'm really into movies, and if you're watching this, you probably are too, so I thought why not go ahead and show my Blu-ray collection. Now, these are all the movies that I personally bought. These don't include everything that my whole family's bought. They don't include Derek's movies, which actually a lot of movies in there I want to get myself at some point. So I definitely recommend you watch that one. I'll have a link in the description. I think Blu-rays are a great format, guys. And I know a lot of people don't even buy Blu-rays because of Netflix and other things like that. And I think that's really a shame, especially if you really want to get the best image quality and you want to get all the special features. Because, the buffering on Netflix and all the other instant streaming sites are just, they make the image look like crap, to be honest. And I much rather would watch my movies on Blu-rays. Yeah, I'm kind of sad that more people don't buy Blu-rays. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started here. These are in alphabetical order, and I will have time codes for each movie. So if you guys are curious and you only want to hear about a couple movies, or you want to come back to it, then you'll know how to get to a certain movie. So let's start off here. This is actually not a very good one to start off with, but 2012. I think this was one of the first Blu-rays I actually bought. Our family had just gotten our first Blu-ray player. This was before the Xbox One. This was before Blu-ray players were really common. I think we got ours around 2009. So it had been out for a couple years. It had started to gain popularity. So yeah, this was like one of the first movies I bought because I was just excited to have a Blu-ray player. And I'll be honest, this movie's not that good. I liked it when it came out, but it's mainly just for the action. The story's really, I don't think it's very good, to be honest. It's not like a terrible movie by any means. It's slightly entertaining, probably the first time you watch it, but yeah, I don't think it's that good. Next year is Army of Darkness. This is actually the third movie in a series of movies, the Evil Dead series. And if you guys haven't seen the first two, which I'm gonna talk about here in a minute once we get to them, they're all actually really pretty different. This one is by far the highest production value. It's definitely more of like a commercial movie, I guess I'd say. It's definitely geared more toward, being like a blockbuster kind of movie. This is my favorite one. It's funny, it's got the right amount of action, but it's a lot less of a horror movie than the other two are, and I'll talk about those once we get to them. Next one here is Badlands. This is actually a Criterion, and if you guys don't know what Criterion movies are, go to Criterion's website, criterion.com. They have a lot of really fantastic movies. They pride themselves on having some of the best movies ever made, and these Blu-rays are honestly better than most of the other Blu-rays you'll get. They do like the highest grade masters you can do. Like this one was restored in 4K, and yeah, they're just really great Blu-rays, and they also come with some extras, and they have really good special features, and they're usually in HD too. Sometimes other movies don't have HD special features, but this movie, I'll be honest, guys, I couldn't really get that into it. Sissy Spacek and Martin Sheen, they're really great actors, and I could tell from this movie that they were, but something about the plot, I couldn't get into it. The cinematography was pretty nice too. But yeah, I just didn't find myself getting that into it. I think I need to watch it again. So yeah, Beetlejuice. I'm sure most of you guys have seen this one already. It's a great Tim Burton movie. Actually not one of my more favorite Tim Burton movies. Although I do like it. The more I see it, the more I like it. I've kind of warmed up to it over the years. This is just kind of a really kooky, crazy movie it's just one of those movies that's really fun to watch, and the effects are really cool in this movie. And yeah, it's a great movie. Michael Keaton's amazing as Beetlejuice, and yeah, I definitely recommend a watch if you're into Tim Burton, or if you just want to see something kind of different. Blade Runner. I used to be like obsessed with this movie. I have no idea why. I just found it to be one of the coolest movies. The more I watch it, the more critical I get about it, but that's because I've seen it like probably 10 plus times. And I do still really like this movie. Not nearly as much as I used to, but I still think it's one of the best sci-fi movies of all time. I think it's really, really good, and I think Harrison Ford does a fantastic job in this movie. I think it's honestly Harrison Ford's best performance in a movie ever. It's different to see a kind of, I mean, at the time this was pretty radical because they were showing a dystopian future, which we're used to seeing now with like Elysium and all those other dystopian movies. But at the time, like all the views of the future were like, oh, it's this great place. But yeah, this one definitely takes a darker look at the future, and I think overall it's a really great movie. Not a perfect one, but it's not for everyone either. But I think if you're into sci-fi, you're into Harrison Ford, definitely check this one out. Bolt. This was another one of the first movies I got on Blu-ray. I have no idea why I picked it out. I think it was just really cheap, and you know, I mean, it's an okay movie. I have nothing really bad to say about it, but not too much else. All right, the other Evil Dead movies, Evil Dead 1 and 2, and the first one, I think I like more than the second one actually. Sam Raimi, by the way, directed these. He directed the Spider-Man movies, and the first one I like a lot because it's like super low budget. It's like total indie, and it's probably the scariest out of the three actually, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, these are really great like B movie horror movies, and they're just really fun to watch, and they're actually done a lot better than most of the B movies. So I definitely recommend checking it out if you're looking for some horror movies, and these are a lot less cheesy than most of the horror movies out there. Fifth Element. I really like this movie. It's really weird. It's kind of dumb, but something about it, I just really like it a lot. Bruce Willis is awesome, and so is Gary Oldman. And yeah, this movie's just really fun to watch. It's not like an amazing movie, but it's just really fun to watch. There's tons of action in it, and I really like it a lot. And actually, what's his name's in it? Chris Tucker is in it, and he's hilarious in this movie. Gattaca. This is a really underrated film. Ethan Hawke's in it, Uma Thurman and Jude Law as well, and they all do a fantastic job. And this movie is actually, I really like the premise. Basically, it's in the future, and it's at a time where everybody's kind of genetically born instead of naturally born. So people have much more resistance to flus and other viruses, and have basically zero chance of having any kind of cancer or anything like that. And Ethan Hawke actually plays one of the last people born naturally, and so he wants to be an astronaut, but they won't let him go because they're too worried that he's too much of a risk, that you know something could happen to him, he gets sick, or you know he has cancer or something. So basically the whole movie is about him, you know, faking to not be who he really is, and it's really interesting. I really like it a lot, and I think it's definitely underrated, and I think anybody should see it, to be honest. Green Mile and Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump's just a classic. Like, everybody's seen it. Tom Hanks is amazing in it, and he does such a great job portraying the character, and I think he does it in a way that's because like it could have been, if the wrong person did this role, like it could have been really offensive, but Tom Hanks did a great job, you know, making it believable but not over the top, and you know, that can be a fine line, but so you know, you should see it if you haven't seen it already. But The Green Mile is probably a little less well known, but it's one of my favorite movies. I'll just warn you guys about mid-film. It's a pretty realistic film. Like it's very historically accurate, I think, and how the prisons worked in the 20s and 30s. But mid-film, there's kind of this supernatural aspect that gets thrown in, which I definitely wasn't prepared for. I wasn't expecting it, and it kind of threw me off. But the more I've watched it, the more I've kind of gotten over that, and I think it's a really great film, and I think Michael Clark Duncan, it is, Yeah, he does a fantastic job, and he's only been in like a couple movies, and this was like maybe his second or third film, and he does such an amazing job in it. And this is one of the few movies I've actually, cried watching. So it's a really great film, though. I definitely recommend you check it out. It's very underrated. Jaws, this is another classic. Classic suspense, directed by Steven Spielberg. The funny thing is, though, I don't know if you guys know, but the shark that's in the movie is a mechanical shark that they actually filmed. And it actually broke down a lot during the shooting of this, which is why you barely see the shark in this movie, which I find kind of ironic because I think, the amount of times you see the shark in this film is more than enough. I think the suspense is a lot greater when you barely see the shark. And so in a way, I'm kind of glad that the shark broke down because I think they were planning to use it a lot more, and I think it would have made the movie a lot cheesier, to be honest. But it's a great film anyway, and yeah, it's a classic. I think you guys should all see it, and Richard Dreyfuss is in it. I love him, and yeah, it's a really classic movie. Plus, it looks great. I think it's like a 4K transfer. Yeah, digitally restored from the 35 millimeter. It looks fantastic. It's one of the best Blu-rays I've seen. Jobs. This movie got a lot of hate, and I actually talked about this movie on the Game Bros channel and why I think it's not a bad movie. So if you guys are interested, I'll leave a link to that in the description. But I'll agree with most people that I don't think it's a great film, and I think there was a lot of potential that got missed with this movie. But if you guys are at all interested in the history of Apple and how they got started and their decline in the 90s and then how Steve Jobs came back, I think it's a really interesting story, and I think they tell the history of Apple really well. But people criticized it because it is called Jobs, and it was almost more about the history of Apple than about Steve Jobs himself. And they really didn't delve that deep into his personal thoughts. They definitely kind of portrayed him as more of the surface level kind of, jerk that he was kind of known for, that, he was really determined to get things done. But honestly, I mean, I get the feeling that a lot of people didn't really know too much about him anyway, so I think it would be really hard to make a super deep film about Steve Jobs. I mean, I could be wrong. There could be a bunch of people that know him really, really well, and I'm sure Wozniak, his partner, knew him pretty well, and probably could have given a lot of insight for this movie. But I think if you just watch it not expecting a ton, I think it's a pretty decent film. Marley. Bob Marley. This is a documentary about Bob Marley, actually, and this is a pretty decent movie. I can't say I'm too much of a fan of Bob Marley. I do like his music, but I was never like that into him. But this documentary I still thought was really fascinating, and I think it was fascinating to see how he grew up and how he got into the music business. And I mean, honestly, if you're a fan of Bob Marley, this is like a no-brainer. You should definitely see this. Raging Bull. This is a Scorsese movie, and a great one at that. Robert De Niro is fantastic in this movie, and Joe Pesci's in it too, and he's really good as well. Even though I'm not into boxing really, it's definitely an interesting film, and it actually doesn't deal with the boxing itself that much. It's more about the struggle that the boxer goes through emotionally and with his family, and it's just a really great film, and Robert De Niro does a fantastic job. And actually at the end, they skip ahead like 20 or 30 years or so to the character, and he gains so much weight, and I actually found out that Robert De Niro actually gained all that weight for the role, which is crazy because he gained like a good 20 or 30 pounds. So really impressive. Robert De Niro's fantastic, and even if you're not into boxing, I would still recommend seeing this film. Ron, this is a Akira Kurosawa movie, and I actually read his book, Something Like an Autobiography, and I thought it was really fascinating to hear how he got into filmmaking. He actually, when he was a kid, he didn't really even think to be a filmmaker. He barely even saw movies, and it's just interesting to read about his life story and how he got into movies. But this movie, I'll be honest, I couldn't really get into, and a lot of people say this is like a masterpiece, but something about it, I don't know. I guess I'm just not that into the Japanese culture, especially the older Japanese culture. I don't know. I mean, the cinematography is great, and I think the way they directed it's fantastic. Maybe it's the subtitles or something, but I think I'll have to watch this one again. It's been a while, so I can't say that I don't like it. Here's another criterion: Scanners. This is a really interesting sci-fi movie. If you guys are into like 80s sci-fi, like this is honestly the perfect movie. It was pretty low budget when it came out, and the main actor in this movie I don't think is that good. You can tell that the guy wasn't that experienced of an actor. But one of the supporting actors is Michael Ironside, and if you guys don't know who that is, he was also one of the villains in Total Recall, and he does a fantastic job, and it's almost worth watching this movie just for his performance. And yeah, it's just an interesting movie. It's also famous for the head exploding scene. And there's also this battle at the end where, because they're scanners, they can like read people's minds and also kind of control them, and they start fighting and their veins start popping out, and it's honestly one of the coolest practical effects I've ever seen. So if it's just for the effects and Michael Ironside, I'd say watch this movie. Schindler's List. This one is, I think this is honestly one of the most important movies ever made. It's a really well done film about the Holocaust, and obviously it's not a cheery subject, but they somehow made this movie so uplifting at the end. Even after everything you see, you just feel so good at the end. And Oskar Schindler was just such an amazing person, and Liam Neeson does a fantastic job in this movie. And it's such a touching movie. I cried at the end, and I don't have any Jewish relatives or Jewish family members, but it was really, really powerful. And I think history is important, and I think knowing what happened is really important, because if we don't know about it, it's gonna happen again if we just pretend like it didn't happen. So I think it's a really important film, and I think everybody should see it. I think it should be required in schools, actually. Now, this is a much more cheery movie, The Shawshank Redemption. This is one of my favorite movies ever. It's just so great. It's so perfect. Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins, it's just so good. I can't even, I don't even have the words to describe it. It's another really uplifting movie. It's just, the ending is perfect, and you feel so good at the end, and it's really uplifting and inspiring, and I just can't recommend it enough. I think just go and watch it. It's that good. I do a terrible job of explaining. Shutter Island, another Scorsese movie. This is a bit of a different one. Kind of a departure for Scorsese, just because Scorsese is a great director, but a lot of the times he does kind of the same thing, to be honest. Wolf of Wall Street, Goodfellas. I mean, they're all fantastic movies, don't get me wrong, but they're all kind of that same style, same structure. And this one was a lot different, and I was really glad to see that. And this is great. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio. It's a very interesting story, and it's got one of the greatest twist endings I've seen in a movie. So if you haven't seen it and you're a Scorsese fan, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You gotta watch it. Spaceballs. This is a great comedy. I'm sure most of you have probably seen it, and you're probably pretty familiar with Mel Brooks. There's not too many directors that can make such funny movies so often. And while this isn't my favorite Mel Brooks movie, it's definitely still a good one, and it's really funny, and it actually has my name in it, well, last name in it, kind of, if you guys know what I'm talking about. It's just such a fun movie. But yeah, not my favorite, but I can see why a lot of people like it, and I still enjoy watching it. Step Brothers. This is kind of like one of those guilty pleasure movies for me. It's so stupid. It's just so dumb, but it's so funny at the same time. And Will Ferrell is so funny, and so is John C. Reilly. They do a great job. It's like a match made in heaven for two step brothers, you know. It's just so funny, and if you're a fan of Will Ferrell, if you're a fan of kind of like the Anchorman movies or you know, anything made by like Happy Madison or, you know, Judd Apatow, like I definitely recommend watching it. It's hilarious. It's a bit raunchy, I'll be honest, but it's worth watching. Sweeney Todd. I think this is my favorite Tim Burton movie. Tim Burton seems to kind of go over the top sometimes, and he's kind of a wacky guy, and he kind of makes wacky movies. But I felt like this was a really well done movie, and it wasn't too over the top. And it's a great musical. It's actually based on a play of the same name, and I think Tim Burton does a fantastic job with this movie, and Johnny Depp's like the perfect guy to play Sweeney Todd. It's just such a great movie. It is really violent, I'll be honest, but definitely a good one to watch, and the music's really good as well. Ted. This is another one of my guilty pleasure movies. I think this is Seth MacFarlane's real first live-action movie. I'm not completely sure on that, but if it is, I'm really impressed because this movie's actually really well made. You know, it may be stupid, it may be kind of raunchy, it may be kind of, you know, offensive, but it's honestly like a really well made movie. Like a lot of production value went into this, and Mark Wahlberg's hilarious, and the CG for the bear is just ridiculously good. Like I want to know how they did that because it looks really real. So yeah, definitely a good one, and surprisingly well done. T2. This is probably my favorite action sci-fi movie of all time because it's just so well done. This was like right when CG was starting to get used more often, and James Cameron just nailed it with the CGI in this. He knew exactly how to use it, which is what makes it so great, because he knew the limitations, and that's why he mixes practical effects with you know, CG, and he makes it just look so realistic and so good and so convincing. You know, that this was like one of the first movies that used real CG, and you could never tell. It looks better than a lot of the earlier CG movies, and a lot of the ones that, you know, came out even like in the early 2000s. It stands the test of time really well. It's one of the most entertaining movies I've ever seen, and I could watch it over and over again. Another one of my favorite movies, not nearly as much, but also a very good movie, is Total Recall. This is directed by Paul Verhoeven, who also directed the original RoboCop movie, which I love as well. And this is just, I think this is my favorite Paul Verhoeven movie, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is just fantastic as always. And it's just such an interesting concept to like go to Mars, and well, he doesn't actually go to Mars. I don't want to spoil anything, but you know, it's such an interesting concept. I just recommend you go watch it. It has one of the coolest effects ever. You know, there's this scene where he's dressed up as a woman because he doesn't want the villains catching him as he's getting into Mars, and so he's dressed up as this woman. And, you know, he gets figured out, and so basically he takes the head off because it's like this prosthetic head that went around him that looks super lifelike. But the scene where he takes it off, where it like kind of comes out and he takes it off, is just one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen. And it's just, the effects are so good in this. Plus, it's a really entertaining film, so definitely go see this one. The Truman Show. This is a great movie, I think. I think if you guys are kind of skeptical of Jim Carrey and kind of think, well, he's just kind of over the top and he plays like the same kind of character and he's just too crazy, I think this movie does a fantastic job of showing that Jim Carrey is not just like an over actor. He's a great dramatic actor, and this movie is like a prime example of that. And I really like this movie a lot. I really like the concept behind it, and they executed it really well, and I think Jim Carrey was perfect for this movie. And if you haven't seen it yet, definitely go see it. Universal Soldier, I have not seen this yet, so I don't have much to say about it. Cheesy 80s action, as far as I can tell. Oh, this actually came out in '92, so 90s action. But I do want to see it, I just haven't gotten around to it. Warm Bodies, this one came out pretty recently, actually, only like a year or two ago. This is I think it's a really decent film. You know, not like one of my favorites, but I liked it enough to buy it, so if that tells you anything. And also John Malkovich is in it, and he's awesome. And I kind of like the concept, and it's got a pretty nice, you know, happy ending at the end. So, yeah, I'd say go watch it. And last but not least is Yes Man. And this is another Jim Carrey movie. And it's funny because this one actually gets compared to Jim Carrey's other movie, Liar Liar, a lot, because they have kind of the same premise. And I say kind of the same because a lot of people say, oh, they have exactly the same premise. You know, in Liar Liar, he can't lie, and in this movie, he can only say yes to things, which actually is quite a bit different. And I think this movie, you know, offers a lot of different things than Liar Liar does. I don't think it's trying to be Liar Liar really in any way. And I like each movie for their own reasons, and I think this is, you know, I don't think it's nearly as good as Liar Liar is, but I definitely still recommend watching it, even if you've seen Liar Liar. So, yeah, guys, that's my Blu-rays. I kind of rambled a bit, but I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of look over my Blu-rays. And the part of the reason I did this is because I want to do some Blu-ray pickup videos every once in a while, and I actually have a couple movies back there that I need to show you guys. So look forward to that. Hopefully we can get some short films up soon, or at least some skits or something. I have a couple things in mind, so I hope we can get some stuff up soon. I want to thank you guys again for watching, and please subscribe and like and comment and all that stuff. And what movies do you guys have in your Blu-ray collection, if you have a Blu-ray collection? So yeah. Thanks for watching. As always, make sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you all later.